back to the YouTube channel of Pro Enzo Vids, and today is going to be my Cronulla Sutherland Sharks 2023 NRL season preview. Now, this was supposed to be yesterday, but yesterday was pretty full on, had things to do, and I was obviously out for most of the day anyway, so going to have to do it right now, which is the Sunday. But also following this sort of preview, it will be the Dolphins one as well, as Dolphins season preview was scheduled on the Sunday too. So Sharks now and Dolphins after, which I think will be pretty good for the viewers to see. But yeah, obviously Sharks are first, going to sort of go into depth about their season and what I think about them, and sort of just go through and analysis them a little bit, I guess. But you know, Sharks are obviously out to, I guess, back up their form from last year. No doubt that some teams do often slide off or not perform the same sort of way they did after one big season, heading to the next season. So, yeah, we'll see how Sharks handle that. But I believe they still have a good enough team to give the competition a shake, that's for sure. But without further ado, time to get into the Sharks 2023 NRL season preview. Alright, on to my best 1 through 17 for the Sharks that I'd personally pick. Not what everyone else would pick, but for what I would pick in my personal opinion. So, for the Sharks, my best 1 through 17 would look like this. So, at fullback, Will Kennedy. On the wing, Sione Katoa and Ronaldo Mulatalo. The centres would be Jesse Ramian and Sifa Talakai. The halves would be Matt Moyle and Nico Hines. Props would be Toby Rudolph and Braden Hamlin-Uele, with hooker being Blake Brayley. And in the back row, I'd have Brendan Nakora and Teague Wilton. And the lock being Dale Finucane. And my bench would look like Cameron McInnes, Wade Graham, Oregon Kafusi, and Royce Hunt. That there would be my best 1 to 17 for the Sharks. So, not too different to what I guess most people would probably pick. But obviously, some people have Wade Graham starting. Some people have Teague Wilton on the bench. But some people do have Wilton starting and Graham on the bench. So, whatever, I guess, way the Sharks go doesn't matter, because I think it wouldn't change too much either way if one of them were off the bench and starting. But just where I would go with it, I would have Wilton starting, because I think Wilton has a bit more to give, while Graham is at the back end of his career. So, but I wouldn't complain either way. So, that's my best 1 through 17 for the Sharks. Okay, on to the club's strengths for 2023. So these are the strengths that I believe the Sharks have coming into 2023. Well, look, they're a very well put together squad. I mean, most of their team hasn't changed, and you know, their back line's pretty strong. Their forward pack looks, yeah, pretty strong as well. So I think you know, there's a positive in that with both how their backs and forwards look. But I guess the main thing for me is like their back five is one of my strengths, I think, because Kennedy, Katoa, Ramian, Talakai, Mulatalo, like that's a very good back five. You know, that's a lot of points that can be scored across them 5 players. So I think that's a good strength for the Sharks, that their back five is pretty strong. And I mean, obviously depth is a bit of a concern for what I can say, but other than that, if these players all stay fit on the field, well, it'd be still very dangerous, I think, like 2022, that back line, because it should still replicate the same results, that back five, if anything. Another strength for me is probably their forwards. Like the amount of impact they have coming off the bench and starting is amazing. Like, obviously you've got Hamlin-Uele and Rudolph there, most likely starting, but wouldn't be shocked if Kafusi started as well. But yeah, I mean, Hamlin-Uele, Rudolph, Kafusi, and Hunt. So that, you know, the amount of impact that comes from there is pretty big for the Sharks. So I'm expecting a lot of good go forward from the Sharks in 2023. Like, they're lucky to have some good big forwards that can create some momentum. So I'd say that's Sharks' strengths. Now onto the club's weaknesses for 2023. Now the Sharks, for me, don't have much weaknesses, I don't believe, until maybe recently with the fullback depth. I mean, I guess losing just recently Lachlan Miller to the Knights was big, but I think losing your young, well, potentially long-term fullback, and I guess the other depth fullback in that club is Kay Dykes, and he's out for the rest of the year with an ACL injury, so that's pretty rough for a youngster. But like losing him, you know, at the same time is pretty tough, and it's only a thing to have Will Kennedy there, and I don't know who would be the backup fullback, maybe Kyle Iro or someone like that, but I don't know. I think that's a real concern now. Their fullback depth, but in general, their back depth isn't that big either. Like apart from maybe Tracy, who could play a wing centre, that young Sitini Torkamo, Greek international player who has a top 30 contract is there. But yeah, no, they haven't got much depth really in the back. So I think their depth in the backs is a bit low. And yeah, no, I think their depth is a little bit scattered, in my opinion. But other than that, they don't have much concerns. I don't think. Like I really just think that their concerns their fullback depth, maybe their centre wing depth, because I can't really imagine too many players from that top 30 that would come into that team unless Sharks had all those injuries. It would most likely be some of their Newtown players that would come in and fill in, if anything. So I think their back depth is a bit tested, and it's not great. But other than that, the Sharks seem to be pretty good in terms of that. Maybe a good backup half for Nico Hines or Moylan, but yeah, no, they're okay. They seem to be okay with weaknesses. On to the Sharks' best signing for 2023, and it's pretty obvious because I don't need to digest into this one too much because it's their only signing as well. Like, it's their only pickup out of everyone they could have signed during the off-season. So I reckon Kaufusi from the Eels, who's a good player, and he definitely is a helpful sort of signing for their forward pack. I'd say he's their best signing because he's their only signing. But no, look, I think it'll be pretty good for the Sharks, Kaufusi, honestly, because at Parramatta, he provided good depth there. He was a good impact type player from the bench. But I guess what he wanted was a bit more opportunity to start. So that's why I'm not too sold on the forward-pack pairing of Hamlin Ueli and Toby Rudolph just yet, because I think in his contract there was something about him starting, I'm pretty sure. But we'll see what the coach does anyway. But look, I think Kaufusi will be a great sign for the Sharks. You know, should strengthen their forward-pack furthermore. And yeah, at Parramatta, he was just getting better, I thought. Like, I thought last year he had a pretty good year and sort of broke out in some games. So if he can continue that form into the Sharks team, then yeah, he'll continue to be a good pickup, and I believe he will be a good pickup. So Oregon Kaufusi for me is the Sharks' best signing for 2023. Okay, on to the club's biggest loss of 2023. And now they've lost a couple of players, actually. They've lost Aiden Tolman, Luke Metcalf, Lachlan Miller, Andrew Fafita, and so on. So yeah, they've lost a bit of quality coming into this year, but not the biggest sort of losses, I guess you can say. But look, if I had to pick one loss that I think is pretty big for the Sharks, it would have to be Andrew Fafita. Despite Fafita not going to any other club, but he just retired, so yeah, not going to any other club. I still think he's a big loss for the Sharks, because to think what he's done for that club over the last couple of years, when the Sharks were average, let's say, before 2015, you know, his form for the Sharks has just risen, and he's, you know, been one of their most fearless and courageous leaders in that forward pack every year. Very consistent player too. I know he had some injury issues, and maybe his form was a bit off at times, but when he was on and when he was starting for the Sharks, he was a fantastic player. It was just 2020, I think we knew that Fafita's best was coming to an end, but look, he was always a great player for the Sharks. You know, I definitely think he could have played for another couple of years, or actually no, for another year, I thought. But yeah, injuries have obviously played a part in his early retirement. But look, Fafita for me is their biggest loss. I could have said Lachlan Miller because he's still playing, and obviously, you know, it's a bit silly to lose him. But look, I think when you think about who's had a bigger impact and who's done a lot more, you got to think Andrew Fafita's the one that you'd pick. So, plus he scored the match when he tried, basically, as well in the 2016 Grand Final. So, look, I think his loss will definitely play a part and show some Sharks games when they may need him the most. But luckily the Sharks have a good forward pack. But either way, Andrew Fafita is my biggest loss to the Sharks coming into 2023. Okay, now on to my top 5 games for the Sharks in 2023. So I've got the draw right in front of me as well. The entire Sharks draw for 2023. So going to go for it right now and go through what I believe the top 5 games for them are come this season. So round 1, Sharks Rabbitohs, not in my top 5, but that'd be a cracker for them to open up the season. Have a bye in round 6. Ooh, Sharks v Roosters at PointsBet Stadium, round 7 on a 6 PM Friday. Yeah, that's up there. I think I have that in my top 5. So that's in 5th. Sharks and Roosters. I think it'll be a big game at PointsBet there. Oh yeah, for sure this one. Sharks and Cowboys at PointsBet as well, round 9. Because it's the rematch from last year's qualifying final where the Sharks somehow lost to the Cowboys on the split second, and I was there. So yeah, that's number 4 for me. Number 3, Sharks v Knights. In my opinion, I think that's gonna be a pretty big game at Coffs Harbour. I mean, they take a traditional game there usually against the Titans at Coffs Harbour, but this year they changed it to the Knights, and Lockie Miller's going to be versus his old club if he does play. So yeah, that'll be interesting. Number 2, I have number two. This is interesting. Rabbitohs and Sharks, the second time they play this year in round 25 at Optus Stadium in Perth. I think that's going to be a big game for the Sharks as well. Great to have a game in Perth, and I think taking on Souths at an area like Perth is going to be big. So that's number 2. And by the way, when I go through all these games the Sharks are playing, it's not in like order on what I believe is the best and the worst. It's just top 5 in general. And number 1 for me is probably going to be a tough one. Storm and Sharks. Yeah, look, Storm Sharks at Amy Park on a Sunday afternoon. I think that's gonna be a cracker. And the last time Storm and Sharks did play on a Sunday afternoon match, it was 11-4 scoreline. It was Paul Gallen versus Will Chambers, and Sharks won that game. I remember that game really well. So good to see Storm and Sharks play each other again on a Sunday in Melbourne. So. And they have great games as well, so I think that's gonna be the best one. I guess the one that tops off my top 5 around 15, Storm vs Sharks. Now onto the player that has to step up the most for the Sharks in 2023, in my opinion. Yeah, there's a few options because I think the Sharks' aim this year would be to win a premiership, or it should be anyway, because after what they did last year and come second and go in straight sets, there's no doubt redemption would be on the cards for Cronulla. So, yeah, no, I think I'm expecting something big from them if they're going to come back and do something. But, look, for me, I think the Sharks, one to look out for and has to step up. I think it's Nicho Hynes again, actually, yeah. Yeah, no, look, I think Nicho Hynes, and I'll give a few reasons why. Look, I know he won the Daily M recently, and he's obviously proven he's a great player, and he's obviously proven he can handle the halfback role and stuff like that, and extra responsibility that role carries. But I think why I'm saying Nicho Hynes mainly is because he still needs to prove and show that he doesn't go backwards. Because I'm just saying, like with players like Jack Wyden in 2020 winning the Daily M, you know, the next year in 2021 Raiders missed the finals, and Jack Wyden was a bit, you know, backwards in that year. And then as for 2021, the Daily M medalist then was Tom Trbojevic. In 2022, Tom was a bit, look, even though we had him out half a season, he was a bit slow at the start of the year as well. Didn't have the best year. But I'm just saying, in general, like the most recent Wyden and Trbojevic who have won the Daily M's haven't really replicated their form the next year. So, and of course there's this different situations to why it's happened. But I think with Nicho Hynes, you know, it's hard to know if he'll back up the same form because I do feel like his form won't be as perfect as it was in 2022. But I do think that he will have some slip ups, but he'll still be good. So I think Nicho Hynes' form really depends on how the Sharks go this year in many ways about their premiership aspirations. But look, other than that, Hynes is a champion player, and I think he'll go well. But again, I think he's the one that needs to step up the most and prove that he's consistent for another year. And on to my final official prediction for the Sharks in 2023. Now, the Sharks obviously had a big year in 2022. You know, Hynes won the Daily M. The Sharks came back from a disappointing year in 2021 to come into 2022 and finish second and make it to week 2 of finals despite getting knocked out twice. Or going out straight sets, I should say. So, yeah, obviously it was a dream year for the Sharks, but in the past, we've seen big years and dream years for clubs, and the next year they don't replicate the same form. So I'm not saying that's necessarily going to happen to the Sharks, but there's obviously evidence that has happened to sides before, and players don't often turn out to be the same as what they were in the previous year. But with the Sharks, they have a great team. Like, their team should be still good enough to take them to the finals, in my opinion. Like, I think with Moylan, Hines, Brayley, Kennedy at fullback, if he's consistent, and the wingers are Katoa and Mulatalo. Like, if that team, and Talakai, if he's on as well, like, them players are good enough to get into the finals. Like, there's no bloody doubt about that. But just, I guess if they can keep up the same form, and I guess their draw isn't that favourable as what it was last year, but it's still not bad. So I wonder if they can, I guess, go through some hard times a bit more, because they didn't have much challenges, to be honest. The Sharks, apart from finals, and when the Storm and other clubs had injuries and players out. So I like to see Sharks test themselves against bigger sides at full strength. But, you know, the Sharks have already proven to me they are a good side, and they should still make finals. But where I have them, I have the Sharks coming 7th, so big drop from 2nd to 7th. But I think with the Sharks this year, you know, I don't think they're going to be the exact same as what they were in 2022. I do think things will change, and they may go a bit backwards. Maybe not that far back, but I see it happening anyway. Because I am a bit wary that some clubs do have second-year syndrome after one big year, then the next year they flop. But I think with the Sharks, in their case, their team's still good enough to take them to the finals and make the 8 at least. But everyone, that's my Sharks 2023 NRL season preview. Hope you all enjoyed. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment what you think about the Sharks in 2023. But until then, thanks for watching. See you in the next preview, which is soon actually for the Dolphins.